Good morning. My name is Carla Williams. Welcome. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home, or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth in love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us matters and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our oneness, our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links in connection in the comments section, including credits for the readings, to virtual religious education, for donations, and to be added to our email newsletter list. A few announcements. The all-church Zoom meeting will be on Wednesdays at 5:30. We'll send a reminder email in the afternoon on Wednesday with a link. We'll hold a virtual coffee and conversation after this service for 30 minutes on Zoom. You can find the link in the comments below or from the newsletter. A vigil in solidarity with the Asian American community and against hate will take place April 1st at 5 p.m. at Loveless Park. Reverend Eileen plans to attend and hopes others will join her. Peter Mayer will join us for a virtual concert on April 24th. You'll hear one of Peter's songs in the service later. Look for the Eventbrite information in the newsletter to join that concert. As we continue to reckon with America's past to more fully understand the racism of today, the Real Team is inviting you to join them in watching the PBS series Reconstruction, one episode each week on April 7, 14, 21st, and 28th. There will be a discussion after each episode. You can register through the link in the newsletter. Here's a pledge update from Joe Romeo.
Good morning. I'm Joe Romeo, Vice President of the Board of Trustees, and I'm here to give the pledge drive update. As of March 26th, we've received 236 pledges, that's 85% participation, totaling $531,103 toward our goal of $553,000. So many have already pledged. On behalf of the board and the staff, I want to thank you for your generosity. If pledging is still on your to-do list, we'd like to help you cross that off. Your pledge can be submitted online or printed out and mailed to the UCE office. Your financial support will help us finalize our 2021-22 budget so we can do all the great things to which we have committed ourselves. Thank you.
And now I invite you to get your chalices ready, set a place for yourself and your family as we join in beloved community.
Our opening reading is from The Moments of My High Resolve by Howard Thurman. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of the holy, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.
We light this chalice in northern Illinois on the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox, also call this area home. We name these in honor and respect. Please join in saying these words by William Scholes. We affirm that every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web, and hence strangers need not be enemies, that no one is saved until we all are saved, where all means the whole of creation. Please join me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Dear weaver of our lives' design, whose patterns all obey, with skillful fingers gently guide the sturdy threads that will survive the tangle of our days. Take up the fabric of our lives with hands that gently hold, bind in the ragged edge that care would sunder and that pain would tear, and mend our raveling souls. Let eyes that in the plainest cloth the hidden beauty see, discerning us our richest hues, show us the patterns we may use to set our spirits free.
Today's Time for All Ages is The Invisible String by Patrice Karst and illustrated by Jeff Stevenson. Liza and Jeremy, the twins, were asleep one calm and quiet night. Suddenly, it began to rain very hard. Thunder rumbled until it got so loud that it woke them up. "Mommy, Mommy," they cried out as they ran to her. "Don't worry, you two. It's just the storm making all that noise. Go back to bed." "We want to stay close to you," said Jeremy. "We're scared." Mom said, "You know we're always together no matter what." "But how can we be together when you're out here and we're in bed?" said Liza. Mom held something right in front of them and said, "This is how." Rubbing their sleepy eyes, the twins came closer to see what Mom was holding. I was about your age when my mommy first told me about the invisible string. "I don't see a string," said Jeremy. "You don't need to see the invisible string. People who love each other are always connected by a very special string made of love." "But if you can't see it, how do you know it's there?" asked Liza. "Even though you can't see it with your eyes, you can feel it with your heart. and know that you are always connected to everyone you love. When you're at school and you miss me, your love travels all the way along the string until I feel it tug on my heart. And when you tug it right back, we feel it in ours, said Jeremy. Does Jasper the cat have an invisible string? Liza asked. She sure does, said Mom. And best friends, like me and Lucy? Asked Liza. Best friends too. How far can the string reach? Anywhere and everywhere, Mom said. Would it reach me even if I were a submarine captain deep in the ocean? Asked Jeremy. Yes, Mom said, even there. Or a mountain climber? Even there. A ballerina in France? Even there. A jungle explorer? Even there. How about an astronaut in outer space? Yes, even there. Then Jeremy quietly asked, can my string reach all the way to Uncle Brian in heaven? Yes, even there. Does the string go away when you're mad at us? Never, said Mom. Love is stronger than anger. And as long as love is in your heart, the string will always be there. Even when you get older and you can't agree about things, like what movie to see or what game to play in the back seat of the car. Or what time to go to bed. Oh, that's right, you two should be in bed. And with that, they all laughed as Mom chased the twins back to their beds. Within a few minutes, they were asleep, even though the storm was still making the same loud noises outside. As they slept, they started dreaming of all the invisible strings they have and all the strings their friends have. And their friends and their friends have, until everyone in the world was connected by invisible strings. And from deep inside, they now could clearly see. No one is ever alone. The end.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it
recently. These are the joys and sorrows that have been submitted through the Google form found on the homepage of our website. If you have any trouble finding that form, you can always send me an email or one to Reverend Susan. From Kathy Underwood, she writes, my mom is still in the hospital but is doing better, hoping to get released to a rehab facility soon. Thank you all for the healing energy and prayers. From Kristen Larson, Craig came home from 5 weeks in rehab this past Tuesday, and on Wednesday, we learned he will have surgery next Tuesday. His breastplate hardware from when they cracked his sternum to install the heart pump has shifted. It will be repaired or removed. If all goes well, he will be home on Friday or Saturday. Please send us good thoughts for a smooth surgery and speedy recovery. Thoughts and prayers and love on the way to you now, Craig and Kristen. Jean Butson wrote, the week of March 28th will be the last week of full-time employment for Jim Strickler. He will be retiring on April 2nd from a 40-year career in educational publishing. Jim's family are so proud of his many accomplishments in his career and thrilled at what he will do next. And his wife and Jean writes, can't wait until he finishes the darn book. From Melanie Kitchener, I'm so grateful for the many emails from you, sending love and support to my family and grandson Flynn, age 7, for testing positive for COVID. Then, not feeling well for several days, I went to immediate care Monday and tested positive for COVID. Now my daughter is showing all the symptoms. When it rains, it pours. I cannot imagine getting through this challenging time without my beloved community. Holding you in love and healing energy for you and your family, Melanie. We know that these are not the only joys and sorrows that are on our hearts. Let's take a moment of quiet now to read to ourselves the joys and sorrows that have been added to the chat, and just to hold all those that just don't get said, but are nonetheless powerful and strong and deeply held, knowing that this community has no walls and that invisible string connects us all. Together, we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. This prayer, titled For While in the Struggle, is written by Reverend Margalie Belazaire, Haitian American and UU minister serving as the assistant minister at First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. Spirit of light and love, spirit of resistance, spirit of generosity, that which serves as our conscience in this work that we do to dismantle white supremacy, to empower the marginalized, to insist that Black lives matter. We have been angered. We have been saddened. We have been pushed to the brink once more. We are also inspired and seem resolved to do better this time, to not simply get to the other side of this moment, but to get there morally healthier, to get to a safer place, a safer space for Black bodies. Spirit, help us to understand that we each have a role in justice work, for our liberations are tied to one another. Give us the clarity of mind to know what our individual part is in the struggle, that there are many ways to protest injustice. Help us to find our way and commit to it. Spirits, we ask for guidance. Send us strength and endurance. Help us to give our all to this and hold nothing back, for precious lives depend on it. We will be imperfect. Rest assured that we will mess up over and over again, and we must do it anyway. May we summon the courage to dare tear down this system of injustice and get busy creating a world community with justice for all. May it be so. Amen.
There are numerous strings in your lute. Let me add my own among them. And when you smite your chords, my heart will break in silence, and my heart will be one with your song. There are numerous strings in your lute. Let me add my own among them. Amidst your numberless stars, let me place my own little lamp. There are numerous strings in your lute. Let me add my own among them. In the dance of your festival of lights, my heart will throb and my life will be one with your smile. There are numerous strings in your lute. Let me add my own among them.
UCE remains a vital part of the world and our community. And because we continue to need one another in the blessings of community, we take this time to invite you to give to our shared plate. Today's offering will be shared with Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, which has picked up the unfinished work of Martin Luther King's 1968 Poor People's Campaign. From Arkansas to Alaska, the Bronx to the border, people are coming together to confront the interlocking evils of systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism and the war economy, and the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. We understand that as a nation we are at a critical juncture, that we need a movement that will shift the moral narrative, impact policies and elections at every level of government, and build lasting power for poor and impacted people. You can text to give, send in a check, or give from our website. If you send in a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy. Our reading is We Covenant by Dr. Janice Marie Johnson, co-director of Ministries and Faith Development of the UUA. Covenants are intentional. Covenants are audacious. Covenants are a promise that can change our lives together in this faith. Together we will be stronger. Together we will be wiser. Together we will be gentler. We promise to recognize our uniqueness, to treasure our faith, to honor our neighbors and holiness. We covenant to be committed to each other, to consider each as significant, to consider each as valuable. We covenant to be invitational, to be accepting, to speak grace-filled truth, to forgive each other over and over again. And yes, to love. Our covenant stands firm. It is our embodiment of faith with each other. It is our blessing of each other. It is our commitment to each other. May we hold this community as a precious gift. May we hold our relationships as gifts that transcend borders. May we carry forth the intention of our covenant, the audacity of our covenant, the promise of our covenant, now and in the years to come. May it be so.
Long before I heard the story that Kathy read this morning, I taught my own child about the invisible string. She was about 6 and encountering an early existential crisis, afraid of death, and more than that, afraid of non-existence. I had similar fears when I was a child, and yet I also had the powerful narrative of heaven from my Catholic upbringing. I could soothe myself with the idea that I would live forever in heaven if I was good enough to get there and see lost loved ones again. I clung to that idea until I simply couldn't any longer. And then years later, when my child experienced an inability to sleep, I felt I needed to find a way to reassure her without telling her something I didn't believe. What I could tell her with honesty is I don't know what happens after we die, but I do know that love is real as anything, even though I can't see it, taste it, touch it, or smell it. And then I told her about the invisible string of love that connects us and that nothing will ever break that string. It seemed to calm her down and allow her to sleep. And it did the same for me, actually. And I don't just believe that this string connects me with my children and everyone I feel love for. I believe this invisible string connects each to all, those we know and those we don't know, those who have gone before and those who have yet to be. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, Dr. King said. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Living into that truth and all that it asks of us is the practice of beloved community, the invisible string, the network of mutuality, revolutionary love. These are what it means to be human beings in covenant. Last night was the first night of Passover for our Jewish kin. Thank you, Gregory, for your wonderful Passover medley and music that's added so much to this service. Passover is the celebration of liberation from bondage, the exodus of Jews out of Egypt, and the return to covenant with God. Woven into this sacred story of liberation told every year as an act of commitment and faith is the understanding that liberation is costly. Liberation is tied to covenant. Freedom is connected to responsibility. Individualism is in tension with interdependence, and justice is bound to accountability. Covenant is something Unitarian Universalism shares with Judaism, though covenants in a UU context are primarily between people rather than a divine being. In this congregation, we hold several covenants that interweave and support the whole of our right relationship. Our 7 principles are a covenant written into the Unitarian Universalist bylaws. Before the listed principles are the words, "We covenant to affirm and promote." These are not statements of beliefs we have to profess in order to belong. These are aspirations we practice and strive toward together. In our striving, we must be accountable to one another, for aspirations without accountability are empty words. No one of us is responsible for the whole, and none of us is exempt from doing our part, whatever that may be. We are accountable to love and service through the covenant which has bound this congregation together for more than 125 years. Love is the spirit of this church and service is its law, wrote James Vila Blake. Yet he left us without a set of instructions on how to hold one another accountable to love and service. How do we dwell together in peace within a world of so much injustice? How do we seek the truth in love, making room for different ideas without giving harmful words a megaphone? How do we help one another in a way that is empowering rather than disempowering or paternalistic? Sikh faith leader Valerie Kaur writes, "Love is more than a feeling. Love is a form of sweet labor, fierce, bloody, imperfect, and life-giving, a choice we make over and over again." The revolutionary love she describes is about accountable relationships with ourselves, with others, and with our opponents, understanding that our opponents are those we are at odds with in any given moment, and that can change from moment to moment. Love requires a responsibility for our actions and how they impact others. Being in relationship means sometimes we will hurt one another. We will let each other down. We will act out of anger sometimes. We will sometimes say hurtful things out of ignorance or our own pain. Being accountable as we practice revolutionary love and build beloved community means we listen. We own our actions. We apologize when we make mistakes, and we work to do better. Accountability, though, has to begin with ourselves. We must start with being accountable to our own well-being, committed to self-care, and knowing our limits. This is a lesson I must learn again and again. I feel pulled to engage in the many causes I am passionate about, dismantling white supremacy culture and the prison industrial complex, advocating for environmental justice, putting an end to gun violence, and promoting affordable housing. Understanding that these injustices are intertwined, I want to be accountable in accountable partnership around all of these issues and more. But unless I can be real with myself about the limits of my time and energy, I cannot be accountable to show up for any of it. Beginning with love for and honesty with ourselves is the only place out of which to be honest and accountable in relationships with others. In the conversations about adopting the 8th principle, some concerns have been voiced about what accountability means in the context of this work and what it requires of individuals in our community. The proposed 8th principle is a covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. What does it look like to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions? What exactly will we be committing to if we adopt this principle in our congregation at our annual meeting? Some of you have asked. Jody Allen, organizational equity and inclusion expert, writes, accountability is sometimes used interchangeably with the word responsibility, which means being dependable. But accountability means making clear agreements about what's expected and about what happens as a result of actions we do or do not take. So, accountability, distinct from responsibility, means being in clear communication about our covenants, the promises we make, the expectations we set and hold, and the impact of our actions and inactions. Being accountable in our relationships is not about shame or guilt, and it's not about judging or punishing one another. Rest assured, you will not be asked to leave this community if you do not commit to doing anti-racism work, or if you don't do it in the way that you think you are supposed to. Collective movements to dismantle white supremacy culture are rooted in joy, self-care, and mutual respect. Acting for justice can take many forms. Wherever you are in the practice of revolutionary love, no matter how you understand your role in the work of building the beloved community, no matter what privileges or marginalized identities you carry, there is room for all of us on this journey. There is a need for all of us on this journey. And yet, please understand that as a congregation, we are going to keep moving forward. We are going to keep practicing, building collaboration, and working toward making the world whole through accountably dismantling white supremacy culture. As a community of faith, we will keep living into our larger purpose, knowing that not everyone will be joining in that work. As the work continues, we can trust in the invisible string, holding us all in connection and love, even as some forge ahead and others hold back and still others resist. Leela Watson Murray, or Indigenous Australian artist, activist, and academic, is quoted as saying, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, let us work together." This is the essence of accountability in beloved community. This idea of collective liberation, understanding that my liberation is tied to yours and everyone else's, that none of us are free unless all of us are free, is not just a lofty ideal. It is a profound truth that I must hear and say again and again to remember, to help me hold myself accountable to the work. Wherever you are or aren't on the journey of anti-oppression and anti-racism, there is a place for you in this community. And it is also important to say that though our theology is expansive enough to hold the inherent worth and dignity of all people, that doesn't mean all behaviors are allowed. There isn't room in the work of building beloved community for behaviors that harm or don't recognize the dignity and worth of others. Allowing harmful behavior that disrupts our mission is not being accountable to our collective commitment to make the world whole. I just started the virtual Beloved Conversations course, which is bringing together people of shared identity across the country to do the internal work of disrupting white supremacy within. Even though I've participated in Beloved Conversations 3 times, I decided to take it again because the curriculum has been retooled and resources added, and because I understand that anti-racism is a lifelong practice and commitment. Participants have been encouraged to partner with a critical friend. Critical not in the sense of pointing out our flaws, critical in the sense of critically important. Additionally, each of us is connected with 2 to 3 others with similar racial identities in a learning pod. In the first conversation with my pod, we talked about our ancestors and how the lessons of our upbringing have led us to recognize our part in systemic racism. I talked about my Italian and Irish American heritage and the inherent racism and misogyny within those cultures. Recognizing and owning the parts of my family history that reveal how I have benefited and been harmed by white supremacy and patriarchy holds me accountable to this work of collective liberation, not out of shame or guilt, but out of knowing that my liberation truly is bound to yours and to everyone else's. This work, which our faith calls us to, must be sustained with self-love, self-acceptance, and mutual accountability. So if you want to begin or continue on the journey of revolutionary love, of building the beloved community, listen to your heart. Don't overcommit or set impossible expectations that you can't meet. Be willing to engage in uncomfortable conversations, share what you are struggling with, and listen to one another. Take whatever small steps you can. Gather the resources you need. Read, listen to podcasts, find ways to serve that bring you joy, form relationships across difference. Be intentional. Set a time, a place, and a space for yourself to do the work that calls to you. Know that where you are called and have the energy to engage, as long as it is life-giving and not harmful, is enough. Practice striving for good enough, not perfect. Perfectionism, urgency, and unrealistic expectations are tools of oppression. You don't need that. As our covenant of engagement states, practice perseverance wherever you engage. This is long haul work. Celebrate successes, track your accomplishments and those who you share them with, and give yourself a hug. Remember that you are not alone. We belong to each other. As a way of remembering that and reminding each other, I invite you into a shared demonstration of our connection to one another and our commitment to our covenantal community. This is not meant to be a burden or a demand, but a way of making visible the invisible string. After the service, I invite you to find some string in your house, yarn or ribbon or embroidery floss, or even strips of fabric, if that's what you can find. Cut 8 pieces of the string, about 10 to 12 inches long. You can wrap one around your wrist to remind you of your wholeness, your worth, and your oneness with others. You may need some help with this if there's another set of hands nearby. I tied this string around my wrist with a Celtic knot. It's sort of like the shape of a heart, or it's supposed to be. I did this when I was preparing for this sermon to remind me of my connection to all of you. So after you've tied that one around your wrist, you can take the other 6 strings, or as many as you'd like, and put them in 6 separate envelopes to mail to 6 different people in the church who you feel connected to, or who you would like to be more connected to. These could be people in your proximity partners group, your covenant group, or the other discussion group. It could be someone that you have served with on a committee. It could be someone in the congregation who has done something you admire. Look up their addresses in Realm and send them a note to say hi along with your string. Let them know that it is a reminder of how we are all connected to each other and accountable to one another. And finally, I invite you to take the 8th string and bring it to church sometime this week and tie it to a branch of the tree in the front yard, the one off the parking lot next to the bench. And if you get a string in the mail, you can either tie that to your wrist or tie that to the tree of UCE as well. So that's it. Let's see what happens. No one will check up on you. No one is holding you accountable for doing this. No one will judge you or berate you if you don't do this. This is just one way for us to demonstrate our commitment to one another and the world we hope to create with our love. May we rest in the web of mutual accountability that supports us and empowers us to be brave and committed to the work of nurturing the human spirit for a world made whole. May we be sustained and transformed by the work of collective liberation. May it be so.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Beloveds, go out into the world knowing that we are all connected by the invisible string of love. And may that knowing empower you to live with courage, grace, and commitment to making the world whole in your own small yet significant way.